Welcome back to Fireside Yankees, my friends. Alex and Ryan here. Today we're looking at two young bullpen arms the Yankees can rely on for the future. Of course, free agency just started. A lot of guys no longer on the roster. If you look at the Yankees roster, Aaron Judge is not there anymore. Definitely a little bit scary, but nonetheless, we'll have a lot of information in the coming weeks and days for you here. But, there are a couple players that are currently on the roster who are set to make a big impact moving forward, especially in the bullpen, losing Aroldis Chapman, losing Zach Britton, Miguel Castro, who I think they might retain on a cheap price point. There's definitely guys that need to step up. You have Scott Efros, who's going to miss the entire 2023 season due to the Tommy John surgery. And then Michael King, who will manage to avoid Tommy John, but, should be available for opening day. This bullpen doesn't seem to need a lot of turnover. There's a lot of really young quality arms that they're elevating and increasing their impact moving forward. But we want to talk about Marinaccio and Greg Weissert today. Two guys, rookies this past season, showed a lot of really good stuff, a lot of really good optimism regarding their game, and some really good metrics we want to share with you guys and why they could make some big impacts in 2023, Ryan. But, when you're thinking about these two young bullpen arms and what they can do in the future here, what are your thoughts? We'll start with Marinaccio, who obviously left a pretty nice impression on the Yankees team. Had that, I think it was a shin injury that was bothering him down the stretch. He couldn't, make an appearance during the postseason, but he was expected to be a big piece of it. But what are your thoughts on him, the impact he did make, and what you expect from him in the future?
Yeah, so Ron Marinaccio really stepped it up this season. I mean, I think he was someone that a lot of people who followed him through the minor leagues in 2021 were excited about for 2022. He showed up a lot of really good stuff in spring training. He made the roster out the gate. He struggled in his first stint with the Yankees. And while he never really has had great command at the major league level, what he does do very well is he has a bunch of plus pitches, right? We talked about the changeup. The changeup was a pitch that he relied on more as he progressed to the major leagues, and batters really struggle with that pitch. And then you even look at the fastball, right? The fastball generated a high whiff rate. It's got a lot of good rising action, and it has a ton of run, and he throws it from an angle in which that it improves that rising effect because the vertical approach angle on it is pretty strong. So, when you have a guy who's getting good vertical break, it's getting a lot of ride, a lot of backspin, and it's also running a lot. The velocity on it doesn't have to be spectacular. It's sitting at 94, 95 miles an hour, which is good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not, the blow your pants off velocity that you see from a lot of right-handed relievers in today's game. So, I look at Marinaccio as someone that the Yankees are going to be relying upon for a decent amount of time to continue to excel for them and give them quality innings, because the quality of the stuff is incredible, right? If you look at his stuff plus, it's well over 120, which is really excellent. That means his stuff is 20% better than league average. He impressed. He did a lot of things really well. So, I look at Marinaccio as someone that I'm excited about for 2023. Someone that I think is going to be playing a big role. I look at, the guy, like you mentioned, there are a lot of guys in that bullpen, Michael King, Clay Holmes, Jonathan Loaiza, Wandy Peralta. There's just a bunch of talent in that bullpen. I think Marinaccio is going to be a big part of it. So, I think that, this team is going to be relying on him. I think he's a really important part of this team. And I think a lot of people are going to have high expectations, and he's going to be able to meet them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. He was really shoving toward the end of the season before the injury. And, at this point in time, he has to play a big role moving forward. They don't have a lot of other guys. They don't have a lot of lefties, but, obviously Marinaccio is a righty, and he fits a really nice role. And even in high leverage situations, I kind of trust him now. Like, after what he showed us in his rookie campaign, I trust him. As you mentioned, some of his stuff is just elite. Like, that changeup that he has is absolutely insane. He throws that thing. It's like a Frisbee. I think it's a 30% put away rate on that. I think he had 29 strikeouts with it this past year, and over 44 innings of play, 11.45 strikeouts per nine. Now his walk rate was almost 5 per nine. So I know he'll want to get that down, but did barely give up any home runs at all. 81.3% left on base rate, a 41.5% ground ball rate, and a 4.7% home run to fly ball ratio. All fantastic numbers. The 2.05 ERA obviously stands out as a great, metric there. But, Ron Marinaccio has a bright future ahead of him. He seems composed in every situation, whereas other guys may look a little jittery. He just looks like he's mentally sharp, mentally focused. And ultimately, that's what it is. If you have the stuff, he's got the stuff. It comes down to the mental component a lot of times what differentiates between good and great. If you have that mental component in those big high-leverage situations, you can lock it down. That just makes you so much better. And I think he's got that mental component, which is half the battle. When these guys are in the MLB for a reason. They're extremely, extraordinarily talented. But if they can lock it down with their confidence, that just takes them to another level. So I think he's got those metrics. He's got that equation figured out for the most part, which is definitely exciting moving forward. But then you have Greg Weissert. Greg Weissert's another young guy, 27 years old. He just got his first MLB opportunity this past year, 11 innings pitched, finished the 5.56 ERA. So, not great on that front, but the last 5 outings of his season, he didn't give up a single run. So, you saw a much better version of him toward the end of the year. And the guy throws the ball like a freaking Frisbee. I don't know if you remember or recall him pitching. I know Ryan does, but I don't know if you guys can recall, but his slider, he's a primary sinker slider guy. But man, those pitches, they freaking move. Don't think I've ever seen a pitch. His slider legitimately is like a Frisbee going across the plate. It starts on the one side and it ends, bearing into guys on the left. It's pretty damn impressive. He's a really, really strong young pitcher with 40% ground ball rate, not a bad number at all. I'm excited to see kind of how his development continues here to 78% more horizontal movement on his slider than the average pitcher, which is out of this world. So he fits Matt Blake's equation, his repertoire pretty nicely. When you're looking at Greg Weissert, he was called up for the ALCS. They didn't use him, but he was there and available. What do you expect from him moving forward? Do you think he's going to be a big piece to this bullpen? With Efros's injury, I think Weissert is the guy that has to step up and supplement that loss.
Yeah, so something that Greg Weissert did very well, as you mentioned, was the ridiculous movement, right? He showed off some elite stuff, right? We mentioned Marinaccio at like around that 120 to 125 range in terms of stuff plus. Greg Weissert sat at 133.9, which was top 20 for all pitchers with at least 100 pitches thrown. So his stuff is elite. We're not talking about just like pretty good, relatively good compared to the rest of the Yankee bullpen, or relatively good, all things considered. We're talking elite, regardless of whatever, whatever asterisk or whatever categories you'd like to place it in. As you mentioned, the slider is ridiculous. It's a very good pitch. And while there are concerns that, with the slider, you have to figure out how to get guys to chase on other pitches, because when there's a lot of movement on your slider, you have to figure out a way to, keep deception. If there's a lot of movement and they start seeing a pitch going down and away, if you're right-handed batter, it's the slider. Whereas with the, with different pitches in his arsenal, with the sinker that has a lot of runs, so it's coming in. You kind of can tell what it is pretty early on for hitters, and I think that led to some struggles at the major league level. I think kind of just tweaking a little bit of his command issues, being a little more aggressive in the strike zone could help him get more chases naturally. Marinaccio was a guy I would also categorized as a guy who doesn't necessarily tunnel very well, but he still figures it out. Same thing with Michael King. These are guys who, have a ton of horizontal movement going on. So, and it's about command. It's about, finding the strike zone a little bit. And while Weissert and Marinaccio, these are both guys who are going to walk more guys than the average pitcher. I mean, I think that's just inherent with their arsenal. I think they still can be successful pitchers. And as for Weissert, you mentioned the sinker, the slider. He also has a pretty decent four-seam fastball. I know the vertical movement on it is rather average at 16.1 inches of induced vertical break. But one thing he does very well is he releases it, again, vertical approach angle at negative 4.2 degrees, meaning that it's going to have a little bit of that riding action. It's going to be a little bit of that deceptive movement up in the zone. And it can make it a pretty good pitch. I think it's a pitch that he's going to be able to utilize in tandem with those against lefties, at least, so he can get swings and misses and have some success. I'm interested to see how he uses the changeup as well. He seemed to use the sinker slider more than the other two, but it's not like he shied away from his changeup or his four-seam fastball. So, I'm interested to see how those two pitches come into the fold next season. And then on top of that, with the sinker, it's a ground ball pitch. I just think Weissert's just got nasty stuff, and I think that as long as he can apply it in a manner that is going to allow him to have a walk rate that's no higher than around 10 to 11% and get a decent amount of Ks and keep the ball on the ground, he'll go out and have a ton of success. That's all the Yankees need. As you mentioned, no Efros is going to be a big blow for the Yankees in 2023. I know he wasn't here the whole year. He was a guy who was traded for, but I think the Yankees had high hopes for him. I surely had high hopes for him. I think everyone who was a Yankee fan had high hopes for them. And it's up to guys like Weissert and Marinaccio to step up. And while Marinaccio has already established himself, I'm excited to see how Weissert establishes himself, because I feel like this is kind of like a similar situation to Marinaccio, where this is a guy who's, coming up through the minors and has a chance to make the team out of spring training. I know he's going to be excited to have a shot to do that. I know that the Yankees staff is excited about him. And I know that the stuff, I'm definitely excited about him, because it's as you mentioned, wiffle ball, Frisbee type movement.
Yeah, it should be fun, guys. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts about Ron Marinaccio and Greg Weissert. Do you think that these guys are going to make significant impacts? Do you think that they're going to elevate this bullpen as second-year players at the MLB level next year? Of course, Marinaccio has a little bit more experience, about 30 innings more than Weissert, but both are equally as impressive in terms of their stuff. So always happy to hear your opinions and perspectives below in the YouTube comments. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.